right. Britt Fontenot, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, Ben. Good morning. My name is Britt Fontenot, and I'm the Economic Development Director for the City of Bozeman in Bozeman, Montana. And in addition to that, I am the chair of the MSU Innovation Campus Board of Directors.
Wow. All right. So, economic development. What actually, because we were talking earlier, what actually got you into that type of work? Just to kind of give some people a little bit of your background.
Sure. Well, thanks for that question. I started at the City of Bozeman as the city clerk before there was an economic development department at the city. And it was through a couple of years of working in that space and realizing that at the time the city manager had an economic development plan, but had no one to implement it. And so I said to the city manager at the time, Chris Kukulski, who's now in Billings as the city manager, said, Chris, if you can give me a few resources, I can implement that plan for you, which kind of began the whole economic development effort at the City of Bozeman. And we're the only city that I'm aware of in the state of Montana that has an economic development department attached to the city itself. There are other examples of agencies and authorities and other organizations and other communities, but as far as I know, we're the only city that has that department.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's something to hang your hat on, right?
Well, I think so. I mean, it gives me access to in particular, our city manager, our decision makers, our elected officials. In fact, just last night, we were having a social reception for the Montana Quantum and Photonics Alliance organization in Bozeman at the new Engine Works building. And I had asked the Mayor Cunningham, if he would come and read a proclamation declaring yesterday, the 14th of April, as World Quantum Day, just as a small example.
Yeah.
These are small but meaningful connection points between the city and the university that I try to make that role.
So with that being said, as this is we focus on national security, but as you and I have talked about a minute ago, national security is everything. There is no such thing as an activity that's really not, especially economically, industrially or financially or militarily. There's nothing that's not even food, right? Nothing that's not national security interests. So, like, with that being said, what is the Quantum Institute? Is that what you said?
The Quantum Core.
Quantum Core. So stuff like that, and obviously things like with semiconductor manufacturing and all kinds of stuff like this, especially in the STEM space and whatnot. How does Bozeman hope to position themselves to be like a hub, I guess would be the word, right? For that.
Right. Well, Bennett, there's a lot baked in there, and
there is. Sorry.
No, it's a great question. That's a whole discussion right there, kind of in a nutshell. And I'll try to be as brief as I can, but making the connections that you referred to. So at its largest, if you will, Montana State University is Montana's land grant university. Its mission, outlined in the Morrell Act, is to educate the sons and daughters of the residents, the citizens of the state of Montana. And our president, Wade Cruzado, takes that very, very seriously and has really made it one of her missions in her tenure here, although she is retiring at the end of June, is to really elevate that land grant mission. And so with that kind of as our overarching mission to educate the sons and daughters, we are the STEM School of Montana, so kind of narrowing it down just a little bit further. We excel in science, engineering, technology, and math, and I would say we do have arts coming along, but the STEM fields are very, very strong at Montana State. So just as a quick example, one of our scientists, Brock Lemires, has a computer that he and his students designed, going back to that land grant model, that he and his students designed that is currently sitting on the surface of the moon. And it's up there testing out sort of its ability to withstand the harsh environment of the moon. Eventually it'll be Mars and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
and so
amazing.
The next frontier. And so that's just one small example of MSU's reach. It's far beyond Bozeman, the state, this planet, it goes out pretty far. It's pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing. It's good stuff. One of the big questions that I've got for you is, so like many communities right now, Bozeman seems to be a hot spot, right? So how do you guys, as a as a city, how are you dealing with I've said to our August Ewell, I've said to him multiple times, call it the Yellowstone effect, and some of the integration of folks into Bozeman. So with that being said, I'm like jobs and infrastructure and stuff like that. I think you guys are doing a great job, but do you have anything to highlight about that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. That's also an interesting discussion because Bozeman, like many Montana communities, has come of age in with a history of extractive industries. You know, it was all about farming and ranching. A little further east of us, it was about oil and gas. Further west of us, it was about timber extraction. So all of these sort of basic commodities. But those things have changed, and part of that, Montana's economy is still an agricultural economy. So I don't want to minimize the importance of that. And Montana State University is the agricultural college, and in fact, supporting the development of precision agriculture is an innovation campus top priority. And so I want to make sure that I talk about agriculture. It's critically important. But there are other industries, there are other areas where MSU can excel. And so we've tried to ride the wave of their success. So for example, in our local economic development strategy, we include industries like photonics and optics, which MSU excels at. We have a very good and strong high-tech manufacturing base. So making precision parts for aircraft and spaceships and other things. We also have a nascent biotech sector, biotechnology sector that continues to grow. In fact, before this company ended up moving, unfortunately, to Boston, our local people, our Bozeman brains, came up with the norovirus vaccine. So there are a lot of really smart, hardworking people here that want to stay, and that's the key. One of the keys to our success, I think. Once people build a career and they build potentially a business or even an industry, a sector, that they really want to stay here because of the quality of life that this area has to offer, Southwest Montana has to offer. And then I'll just move on quickly to the tech sector is really strong here, particularly software as a service. Quantum computing, as you referenced earlier, is coming on strong. And we can talk a little bit about the designate Montana as a tech hub designation recently. That's an important advancement. And green tech. There are a lot of interesting innovations coming out in the green tech space. We have a company here, for example, called BioSqueeze that uses it's like a bug, some sort of bug that once calcified, it can seal wells.
Oh wow.
Gas or oil wells. And so using these types of innovative technologies coming out of Montana State, they really have an opportunity for entrepreneurs to thrive in this ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, it comes as no surprise. You guys are one of the fastest growing cities of your size in the nation. So,
and we just tripped, Bennett, sorry to interrupt, Bennett, I just want to be clear. We're about 56,000 residents. For those that don't know Bozeman, we recently, in the last census, our population tipped us into a metropolitan area.
Metropolitan.
So
nice.
We used to be kind of on the top of the heap of the micropolitans. Now we're at the bottom of the pack on the metropolitans, competing against your Austins and Seattles and other communities. So we're not quite at that scale, but for our size and what we do, we feel like we hold our own.
Yeah, for sure. And it does still maintain that small town kind of feel, which is nice.
It does. I think so. Our downtown's really well received. Housing is an issue here, though, Bennett. The more people that arrive, the more the challenges we have.
Yeah, of
we have
course.
Affordable place to live and keeping up with infrastructure is also can be a challenge.
Yeah.
So those are a couple things we face.
Yeah, and for sure, well, you're not the only ones by any stretch of the imagination. Even here, I actually live outside Syracuse, and even Syracuse is, which is not a huge city, but I mean we're 200,000 people, and it we're struggling with the same. So I think
It's really,
it's an everywhere problem.
and the costs just keep going up, and this is
Yeah,
also
for
an
sure.
everywhere problem. The costs just continue to go up. We've got some issues with our workforce because development is going so strong. We don't have enough people to keep up with that, and so we call them
Yeah,
the L's. The cost inputs of land, labor, lumber, and then the interest rates with lending. Those inputs all really play into how affordability works out over here.
yeah. Great point. The L's. I like that too. I'm gonna steal it. I'm gonna steal it.
Go ahead.
Wrote it down. So so you bring up agriculture as being, it's one of the bases besides healthcare and stuff like that, which are always at the top of the heap, right? But agriculture, we here I talk to a lot of folks that are like into drones, like and the commercial applications of drones, and that there's a huge application for them in agriculture. And so I don't know if there's a lot going on and I should know at MSU whether or not there's a big drone infrastructure being built or
Yeah, well, I'm happy to talk about that. I mean, and you're absolutely right. Drones are really paving the way for agriculturalists, farmers, and ranchers to really save money and by increasing their technology. So, just a quick example: I was riding with a gentleman the other day. He's a cattle rancher out of Big Timber, Montana. And in the past, of course, they would use horses and then more recently four-wheelers to round their cattle up and make sure and check on them, track them, etc. Now they're using drones. They're able to use drones to track with the sensors, right? And I mentioned photonics and optics a little earlier, which MSU excels in and has for probably 4 decades. But using these sensors now and the sensor technology, they can round up cattle. They can detect moisture content in huge wheat and other alfalfa fields. They can detect pests. So all this technology is allowing just for a more cost-effective way of being a farmer and a rancher, and making sure that we can still keep those folks around and producing the food that we need, because it is in our national security interest to be able to produce food and feed our country and even with surplus feed other nations who suffer from food insecurity. So things like food and water and even critical resources, minerals, are all really important bits and pieces of the national security conversation.
For sure. Yeah, I saw a video the other day of a guy. Well, you had a cowboy, you had one, and I can't remember how many head of cattle it was, but it was a few, but they had 2 drones working the outsides of the herd. I was like, oh my gosh, it was pretty amazing. I don't know if it was in Montana, but it was really cool. So
And just on the entrepreneurial side of things, I mean, because I get calls all the time and folks saying, "Hey, I've got this idea. Can you connect me to the right folks, either at MSU or state government or local government?" And this gentleman called me one time and said, "Hey, I've got this idea using this drone to detect animals that are suffering from chronic wasting disease, for example,
wow,
because they exhibit
wildlife
certain
populations." Yeah,
exactly, because they exhibit certain characteristics in their physical attributes. And so, and you can use drones with certain sensors that have heat, the ability to detect heat to detect the animal's body temperature. And so, this person was trying to come up with a platform where they could use sensors to help identify sick animals in the wild using drones and sensors.
But that's amazing. It seems like it should be doable, right?
It does. I think there's there are many hoops to go through with that kind of technology, not the least of which is just perfecting the platform, the technology itself. But then there are all the governmental regulatory bits that go along with that. So he was just getting started and had a little ways to go.
So I'm an avid outdoorsman. So is CWD how big of an issue is it in Montana?
Well, I mean, it's still around. I mean, we hear
Yeah.
about it from time to time. It's not something that there are check stations that I know the hunters have to
Gotcha.
bring their animals to, and so it's something that the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks does keep an eye on, and it's something that I think the conservation community and the hunting community are really concerned about. They
Oh
want
yeah.
a healthy population of game animals.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's a problem. It's bigger problems some places, but you know, it's a plague, I guess you could say. So yeah. Um, yeah. So with all that being said, how do you see, the biggest drivers and the biggest, things coming, like the future of Bozeman? Like, what do you really see happening?
Well, that's a
When it comes to technology, national, you know, whatever, everything we're talking about.
couple things. So I don't, I see our growth kind of sort of stabilizing, but I don't see it declining. There's some pieces about living in the Mountain West that I think are always going to be attractive, either for lifestyle reasons, access to public lands. Also, climate migration, I think, is going to become more and more of a topic. You hear a little bit about it these days, as you know, with sea level rise and a few other things that are on people's minds. Which, by the way, I don't know much about in terms of national security, but I do hear about. I've heard about, and I hear folks talking a little bit about the coastal areas and what that means for our infrastructure. And
Oh, absolutely.
so, you know, things are going to have to naturally move inland a little bit, and folks are looking for places like Montana and other Rocky Mountain states to move to. So I think that's going to continue, just in terms of the people wanting to be here. I also think that means that communities like Bozeman and others in Montana and the Rocky Mountain West are just going to have to get used to this type of growth and change. For us in Montana, you know, we don't have a sales tax, and so that means we have to fund our infrastructure and our growth through property tax. And the legislature happens to be in session. The Montana legislature is in session this year. It meets every 2 years. We have a citizen legislature. They meet every 2 years, and they talk about, you know, these things are discussed every session. And once again, we're talking about how can we continue to meet the demands without breaking the back of the property taxpayer in the state of Montana. So those conversations go on, but I do see MSU, Montana State University, continuing to be a leader in research. MSU is an R1 research university, so that's the top level research institution in the country. I believe they dedicated around $250 million. That's $250 million in research expenditures over the past year. A lot of it has been kind of going into this security, food security, water security, minerals, all this effort that's underway now. MSU is also host of some really interesting programs. One of them is it's called the Monarch Quantum Foundry. It's a partnership between the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and MSU here in Bozeman. So hence the name Monarch. And they're working together through I believe it was a National Science Foundation funded program to investigate quantum materials. So just understanding the material side of this new science.
Wow.
That's one leg of the stool. We have a researcher here at MSU who's working on a pilot program for quantum communication. And it starts to get really sciencey and out of my field really quickly, out of my area of expertise really quickly. But the quantum communications provides, my understanding, is a very secure form of communications that's unable to be breached, or if it is breached, it's you're aware of it and you can adjust accordingly. And then finally, just quantum computing, this idea that billions of calculations can be run in an instant, as opposed to classical computing, which has positive influence and impact on everything from drug development and manufacturing to climate modeling and research and weather, and also even financial institutions and financial modeling. So there's a lot of applications associated with that, and we, just while we're on the national security side, also there's some interest, of course, with national security applications with this technology. So As you can, so this has a wide application, and I think, at least from my part, 'cause I'm not a scientist, but we're only sort of scratching the surface as far as my knowledge in terms of what the capabilities are. And MSU is fortunate enough at the quantum core in August to be the host of two Orca, which I believe are manufactured in the UK, two Orca quantum computers. I believe we're the only university in the United States that's going to host and own two quantum computers that are going to be functional, operational, and part of the research initiative at MSU and the Innovation Campus.
Wow, that's like force multiplier, big time, when it comes to everything, really. I mean, anything that has to do with numbers, statistics, just answering questions, even, so crazy. That's amazing. How did that happen? Like, how did just the relationships and the track record that they've got?
Well, I believe there was a convergence last year that was really significant and important. As I mentioned earlier, MSU has been a leader in photonics and optics for probably 4 decades. Ralph Hutchison was the first MSU student, graduate. I believe he was one of the first professors, rather, who polished up a ruby crystal and shined a laser beam through it and sort of launched the quantum and the laser technology space here at MSU. So we have a long history of success in that space. MSU also works with a lot with NASA, doing some work in space with nano satellites and using nanotechnology, and so there's a whole element there. And then last year, MSU was a partner in the designation of Montana being a tech hub, a technology hub, the Headwaters Tech Hub. And I think there are 11 tech hubs that were established over the entire United States, all with a slightly different mission. And I believe this funding came out of the CHIPS Act, 2024. So this funding enabled Montana to establish the Headwaters Tech Hub, of which MSU and the Innovation Campus are sort of at the center of, because the strategy is to use photonics and optics as this enabling technology as what we do best and sort of bring to the table through the Headwaters Technology Hub.
Absolutely. So we had talked earlier about entrepreneurship, and one of my personal beliefs is, entrepreneurship is going to save us. I mean, it just kind of makes sense. It always has, right? But I feel like there's been a focus on entrepreneurship, but I don't feel like it's the focus. It's more of like gig entrepreneurship is like what I like to call it. Mm-hmm. So how, and you had brought something up earlier, but how's Bozeman? How are they for entrepreneurs? Like, how is it? Like, what are you guys doing to attract and get folks to come there and innovate?
Well, that's a great question. And Montana has one of the highest rates of small business owners in the country. And we know that the backbone of our economy is sort of sits atop the small businesses and what they bring. And I don't know if it's sort of a throwback to that farmer rancher mentality of just, this really just work ethic and what it takes to get it done and to get it done well. But the entrepreneur ecosystem in Montana is really strong, and it is as well in Bozeman. And so I'll just give you a couple of examples. I think in the past, entrepreneurism was sort of an afterthought. Like, oh, you're good at this thing. Why don't you like bolt on an entrepreneurial class to that, and then you'll be good to go. But I think that idea is starting to fall away a little bit. Instead of sort of off to the side, let's do some entrepreneurism. Let's bake it in to the DNA of the student as they come through the university. So, for example, the Jabs College of Business and Entrepreneurism is there it is. It's right in the name of the school there, because that's how important it is. And so we'll see engineers coming through the engineering program who will be taking up classes in entrepreneurism. We'll see other STEM related folks at the university, so sciencey math people who are headed towards a degree who are also taking an entrepreneur class because they now understand, and they're being counseled through their programs to really seek out some training, some education, some knowledge about what it is to be an entrepreneur, because that is one of the ways you can make it work in Montana. Because as I mentioned earlier, wanting to stay here is a big part of why people want to come to Bozeman, to MSU and other universities. And so giving them a way to not just go to college for 4 years or beyond, but to build a business here so that you can actually stay rooted in the community, which really allows us to grow. We use economic gardening as our underpinning economic development strategy. So that really helps us to grow our entrepreneur ecosystem.
I like that term, economic gardening.
I didn't make that one up. Christopher Gibbons.
Yeah. Do you guys have any veterans initiatives in Bozeman?
Yeah, that's thanks for asking that. That's an issue that's really important to me. While I'm not a veteran, my father and my brother are both veterans, and so I'm always looking for ways to support the veteran community. And Bozeman and Montana are really veteran friendly. And a couple of examples. I think Montana is known as as a state with one of the highest per capita veteran populations. Not only veterans who were born and raised here and have gone off to serve and then have come back, but people who have gone off to serve from around the country who have chosen to Montana as a place to return to because of the entrepreneurial opportunities, because of Montana State University's very active and very well-known veteran support center. So which is another pillar here. So we've got several organizations who support veterans through entrepreneurism, but also support veterans through trying to help them reintegrate into our society, whether they have physical limitations or have experienced a traumatic brain injury or other injuries while serving our country. They well-known organizations like Warriors in Quiet Waters or the Commit Foundation. And there are many others, and I hate to leave any out, but there are several organizations who are here to support our veterans, get them back and get them back in the game, in whatever game that might be for them. So and then finally we have a veterans court services here, which really supports veterans when they need that extra support from the criminal justice system to point them in a direction that gets them out of that system as quickly as possible and back into society, contributing and feeling good about themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Veterans Court's huge. I used to work in the homeless part. I was part of the homeless team at the Veterans Administration. So yeah. And folks just, there's just sometimes they need special help. So
yeah, I mean, life happens sometimes, and you just need the support. Sometimes it's just a little nudge. Sometimes it's more than that, but sometimes it's really just a nudge. And we have a VA location here, so I count that as one of our support.
Yeah, it is. It's huge.
In fact, we have so many things going on in Bozeman to support our veterans and across the state, but I know most about what's going on here. We've gotten some calls from some internationally. So, for example, I was recently asked if we could host a delegation of elected officials from some Ukrainian cities to kind of look around and see what we do to support our returning veterans, because they, as you might imagine, need some ideas and some support as they receive a lot of returning veterans in their communities across Ukraine. Yeah. So we have a lot to offer, but also a lot to share, I think, beyond Bozeman.
Well, and MSU is a yellow ribbon school.
That's right. So I'm really proud of that.
It's always a big deal, especially considering what MSU is to Bozeman. It's also a huge attractant for folks, right? So, veterans that come home and they want to get that use their GI Bill,
Exactly.
And why not go to Montana? Just saying.
And there's some aspect of being in nature, and I don't necessarily mean Montana, although I'm biased to Montana. I love it out here, but think of anywhere where you can surround yourself in nature, and there's just a healing property to that, a healing quality to that. When you add in some maybe a little bit of adrenaline with some rock climbing or some skiing or snowboarding, maybe a little tranquil fly fishing. It's just like the complete package of opportunities to allow people who have got a lot on their mind to come and just sort of like slowly let that diffuse out and just find some other ways of accessing the outdoors and getting themselves where they need to be.
Absolutely. I know first time I ever went to Bozeman, I got off the airplane and all you see is mountains, right? So I literally stopped for like 15 minutes and just looked at the mountains. It's a different because I'm East Coast. I've been on the East Coast my entire life. I mean, we have mountains, but they're different, obviously. Right.
I'm looking at them now.
Yeah.
It's they're pretty amazing. I mean, they're like they're always there. Good times and bad times. You can always count on those mountains looking over you, and making awesome. Sure their shadow is right where it always has been.
For sure. Yes. And that when they say big sky country, it's for real. You've never seen a bigger sky. So with that being said, so I just want to give you the last word on Bozeman's and you got what you think needs to happen for us to help, since it's the National Security Podcast, just help kind of do our part to what do we need to do as a nation to really just move forward and not get stagnant, because we've kind of been stagnant a little bit here and there and kind of at each other's throats. So
I know how that feels. I know what it feels like to feel like to be stagnant, or like you're spinning your wheels and you're not making traction or getting traction. And that's how I have felt working on the Innovation Campus for probably the last 10 years. But I'll tell you, things have really changed over the past 2 to 3 years. And I guess my final thoughts would be, the Montana State University Innovation Campus is supporting the national security effort in 3 very significant ways. And we talked about a couple of them. We're supporting the development of precision agriculture, and that enhances the efficiency and the sustainability in our practices. So hopefully that allows us to keep growing and ranching for the long time. We also want to advance cutting edge research. That's where changes are made. That's where new frontiers are forged. Not only in photonics and optics, but also in other sensor development, quantum, life and computer sciences. I mean, these are areas where we need to gain some ground. We need to regain some ground in these areas. And Montana State is a place where that's happening now. And then finally, contributing to the broader national security effort by developing some solutions that address some of these emerging challenges that we're seeing in our communities, enhancing life safety and resiliency. Those are some key points that we're really trying to promote at Montana State and at the Innovation Campus. And so I would just ask any of your listeners, if you're interested in national security and you're interested in the work going on at Montana State, we are a yellow ribbon university and support our veteran community really with all we have. And so please reach out to us and let us see how we can support you.
Amazing. Great. Any last words?
I just really appreciate the opportunity. I thank you to all the veterans listening for your service to our nation, and I look forward to hearing from someone. Bennett, I don't know how we get my contact out to.
Yeah, no, I'll put it in the show notes. Okay, you can tell people how they can find you, and then I'll make sure I put all the links in the show notes.
All right, I'll just pass on my phone number, my cell number. It's area code 406. We say we live in the 406, so 406-579-1302, 406-579-1302. That's my direct cell phone number. I'm happy to link anyone up with that's interested in speaking about the Innovation Campus or other national security issues.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Britt.
It's my pleasure. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great day, and let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
I will be your shield in the fiercest battle. I'll defend you from all these arrows, and the sword I wield will keep you from danger. Let me be your shield.
Yeah. It's just you, me, and the odds. We stuck together, we two peas in a pod. You dealt a bad hand, I'm there seizing the cards. We'll never be separated till we see in the gods. We've been low together, high forever. Long as we go together, we'll die whenever. Be a light, couldn't let the darkness try you ever. Truth in my word, you I lie to never. And when the world gets a little too hard, wipe your eyes, put away your sorrow. When it's war, I'll be leading the charge, and I'll be still fighting for you tomorrow. Yeah, even with a blindfold or in different time zones, could find my way to you with my eyes closed. There's nothing between us. Go to Mars or Venus, stand in front of every one of them rocks they slinging and be a shit.
Your shield in the fiercest battle, I'll defend you from all these arrows, and the sword I will keep you from danger. Let me be your shield.
Yeah, let's go. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield.
You may be facing tribulation, but don't let it get you down. What I'm saying may take patience, but you're gonna make it.